Well, I keep hearing the Ron Paul people still muttering their same talking points, which I've become very, very bored with. Well, because they're wrong, mostly because they're wrong. But also because it's just boring as heck. And I keep hearing now New World Order and, of course, the beloved CFR. Oh, the beloved CFR talking point. You know, I think it's when some people die, maybe when Ron Paul, the last words on their lips are going to be CFR. Kind of like, you know, Rosebud in Citizen Kane. Yeah. But, of course, that's all wrong. Well, not all wrong, but 95% wrong. And listen, I recommend you guys start reading books. There are things called books. And there are lots of books now talking about the run-up to the war, the war in Iraq. I'm talking about the war itself, how it was mishandled by Rumsfeld and others, and the power struggles within the administration. And I've got Plan of Attack here by Bob Woodward. And let me just review the run-up to the war. Dick Cheney, when the Bush people came into office, and Bush people, I'm talking about Cheney and Rumsfeld, and to a lesser extent, Rice, but not Colin Powell. And you could say CFR Colin Powell, you can say CFR Colin Powell all you want, but Powell never thought it was a good idea, and I'll read some quotes. I think he called it lunacy, the war in Iraq. Lunacy, and he argued against it, and that's what actually caused him they fired him, basically, told him to leave. So he didn't last. He was the first to go. Frankly, Powell was, I think, one of the few sane people in the Bush inner circle. But if you read in the first 20 pages of Plan of Attack, and that's an easy thing for you guys to do. Get out of the library, you don't have to spend any money, Bob Woodward, Plan of Attack. And it says that in 2001, when the Bush people were taking over, that the Clinton people briefed the Bush people about what were the main threats to the United States. And Iraq was not on the top or even near the top of the list. Okay, this is Clinton people. Now, this is CFR people. This is all part of the New World conspiracy. So Iraq is not mentioned. Al-Qaeda is the first that's mentioned. And it turns out to be correct. The Clinton people were correct. Okay, and they said that the Al-Qaeda is the main threat to the United States. And then it was number 2 was weapons, the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, but they didn't talk about Iraq in that. And the third emerging threat was China and its military. Now, then there's a quote, this is on page 4 of the book. It says, on the long walk up to the war in Iraq, Dick Cheney was a powerful steamrolling force. Ever since the terrorist attacks, when they're talking about 9/11 terrorist attack, he had developed an intense focus on the threats posed by Saddam and by Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda network. It was seen as a fever by some colleagues, a disquieting obsession. For Cheney, taking care of Saddam was a high necessity. Okay, and then to blow more holes in the New World Order / CFR big huge conspiracy theory is that the military didn't like the idea of going into Iraq. They were already stuck in Afghanistan. I'm talking about November 2001. And Bush orders Tommy Franks to come up with a plan to invade Bush and Rumsfeld order Tommy Franks to come up with a whole new plan to invade Iraq. This is while Franks is already trying to deal with Afghanistan, the war in Afghanistan. And he is like, he can't believe it. He said, what? We just started one war, and he said, are they crazy over there? So the military didn't think it was a good idea. They were already stretched already. And then, okay, so by the way, Franks threatened to quit at one point. Rumsfeld was getting all bent out of shit because Rumsfeld wanted that war in Iraq bad, and Rumsfeld said, "Listen, maybe I better get out of here. I can't, you know." And let me quote Powell. Hold on. Okay, and then on page 22 of this book, see, I'm just this is the very first 30 pages. It pretty much outlines how the war started and where the planning started. It wasn't the CFR, people. It was the neoconservatives, kind of wacko neoconservatives, Wolfowitz, Rumsfeld, Cheney, who pushed the war, and they pushed Bush because Bush didn't know. He didn't know anything about foreign policy. But let me read you from page 22. Powell thought that Wolfowitz was talking as if 250 million Iraqis would rush to the side of a U.S.-supported opposition. In his opinion, it was one of the most absurd, strategically unsound proposals he had ever heard. But Rumsfeld kept beating the war drum. And Powell, shaking his head, kept saying, "This is lunacy." It was not clear where the off switch was or whether there was an off switch. So the Secretary of State sought opportunities to speak directly to the President. That's your CFR guy, Colin Powell. He warning Bush against the war. He said, "Don't let yourself get pushed into anything until you're ready to go for it, or until you think there is a real reason for it. This is not as easy as it is being presented, and take your time on this one. Don't let anyone push you into it." And now Bush says something about don't worry, I'll handle it. I'm the decider. Okay, Bush responds to Powell, "Don't worry about it. It's good contingency planning, and I know what they are doing, and I'm no hurry to go look for trouble." Yeah, right. Okay. Still alarmed that such a scheme might get traction, Powell again raised the matter of a quick strike or an incursion into Iraq to the President. Powell said, "You don't have to be bullied into this." He urged Bush to take it slowly. "I've got it," the President said. "I know it." Well, there was never any planning for any kind of limited strike, of course. And who was the first to get dumped overboard, you Paulites out there in the Bush administration? Colin Powell. Colin Powell was the first to go. Got thrown over. He didn't make it. He got through the first 4 years, and then he went. So Powell here is already saying that that the whole thing is dangerous.